Our next speaker today is Heather Morgan. Heather takes the road less traveled, and when that road doesn't exist, she forges her own path. From Hong Kong to Cairo and back to Silicon Valley, she enjoys diving into new challenges. Heather helps B2B tech companies improve their messaging to sell at a higher velocity, writing cold email templates to get more qualified leads from the prospect list. She transforms email templates with 4% response rates into those that get 18%, getting her clients dozens or even hundreds of more customers. Having resided in 7 countries, she can create persuasive messaging for Asia and the Middle East. Heather is multilingual and speaks 6 languages, including business-level Japanese. While Heather has the analytical acumen of an economist, her superpower is understanding how to engage audiences and build relationships. An experienced blogger, copywriter, and published author, Heather's copywriting wows and drives traffic. Welcome, Heather Morgan.
Do your cold emails get answered, or do they go straight to the trash or the spam folder? Today I'm going to be talking about 5 secrets that will help you craft cold email campaigns that will never be ignored. My first cold email was in the form of a letter that I wrote to my favorite author when I was 4 years old. His name was Robert Quackenbush, and he wrote the Miss Mallard Duck Detective series. And I wrote to him with a question asking him where I could find more of his books because the local library didn't have any more, and I had read them all. And so the result of this was 3 autographed books from my favorite author. And I was completely floored at 4 years old when this happened. Since the day I sent a cold letter to my favorite author, I've written over 10,000 cold emails and helped more than 50 companies create cold email campaigns that have generated millions of dollars in sales revenue. And it all started with that message because it taught me how to build genuine relationships with people you've never met and how to connect with people and build reciprocity from a single written message. Today I'll teach you how to craft email messages that will get you 2 to 3 times higher open and response rates than all the other messages that are being sent out in the industry. The first step to creating a powerful cold email is understanding your audience. You need to know who is your buyer persona. A VP of sales is completely different than a CTO. Someone at a SMB is a different person than someone at Google or Salesforce or inside sales. So you need to think about your buyer and what is that person's responsibilities on a daily basis. What things are they struggling with? What are their pain points? So once you have these things in mind of just who the buyer persona is that you're going to be reaching out to, you need to do some research, what I like to call e-stalking. So I generally start this on LinkedIn. So if you're trying to target VP of sales in the software industry, at companies with anywhere from 200 to 5,000 employees, you can just create a simple LinkedIn search like this. And so I'm going to look at Eileen's profile. So what do you see? You'll notice different keywords on her profile like Salesforce.com, SaaS, startups, leadership, sales management, CRM. If you look at her recommendations, you'll also find similar things. So with some of these keywords in mind, we want to think how we can apply them to our messaging. And that messaging needs to start with our benefits. How can we benefit our customers? How can we add value? How can we delight them? No one wants to hear a self-focused message all about you and your company and how cool your company is, all the words you won, all the bells and whistles you have. It's not about you, it's about them, really. So you need to think how your product or your service can solve these people's problems. How can you be their hero? So thinking back to that LinkedIn search we did, what are some of the keywords that we can fit in? If we're thinking about VP sales at software companies, we probably want to talk about CRM or Salesforce.com or sales execution or a number of different keywords. No one wants to read a cold email that is longer than the Great Wall of China. This is not a book. This is not a blog post. This is something that should be focused. So generally, there should be one benefit or idea per cold email, and to kind of get an idea if you're on the right track, your email should be no longer than 5 sentences, and some of the best cold emails I've written are actually only 2 sentences long. If you're any longer than that, your prospects are not going to care. They're just going to give up and hit the X button or delete, and you've lost them. So when you're thinking about creating a cold email, you need to keep 2 things in mind. One is to keep your emails short, like cut out any unnecessary words, which you saw here, any jargon, any extra sentences, anything that doesn't need to be there is getting in the way of what you're doing. And double check very carefully that you don't have any spelling or grammar errors that will make your prospects lose confidence in you before you ever talk to them. So the next thing you need to consider is how to build confidence and trust with your prospects. You're emailing people you don't know. You're a stranger to them. Why should they trust you? One of the best ways to demonstrate credibility is to give social proof or a case study. And typically we do that by mentioning a client. The better known the client is, the better. And also a number or statistic that demonstrates the value or ROI. So in this case, this email shows how the sender was able to benefit Access America Transport by increasing their outbound calls per day, which ended up boosting their monthly revenue by 40%. And that is a very compelling and credible statistic. A good general approach to cold emails is to test everything. No matter how targeted your list is, people are people, and there's going to be different types of people within your population. So even if you're targeting VP of sales, some of them might be more skeptical than others. Some of them might be driven more by value, and others might really be motivated when their ego is stroked or they're complimented. Others are driven by fear of loss or competition. So just like fishing, different kinds of fish require different kinds of bait. And so different value propositions and different messaging will resonate with different audiences, which is why you need to test and why I like sending 8 emails and 2 variants per email. So you have 16 emails per persona to really get an idea of what works and what doesn't. It's also great to test what time of day or week your prospects respond best, and it's different for every industry. Oftentimes we see that Monday is one of the worst days. Thursdays and Fridays often perform better, but you really have to think about your audience. There's no magic rule. So whenever they're most likely to be the least busy and checking their email and have time to respond to you is probably the best time to email them. When you're emailing people, you need to think about different psychologies. What's driving them? Are they more driven by greed or getting more value or benefits, or are they more afraid and driven by fear of loss or motivated by more negative things? So a value add message is like dangling a carrot in front of someone. So here in this email, we're motivating the prospect by offering them a time-saving hack that could dramatically reduce the time they spend each week on their Salesforce reporting. So any kind of benefit is usually one that saves time, saves money, or generally makes more money, makes things faster, or reduces risk. So these ideas are very positive. On the other hand, there's the concept of kicking a bruised knee. So here we talk about how the company is ensuring that they stay competitive and don't fall behind. So everyone's afraid of losing out and missing out and falling behind. So here we're really motivating them with both fear and the idea of the competition, which are 2 very powerful ideas. Some Sometimes this works, a lot of times it works, but it doesn't appeal to everyone. So you need to test this and the positive value add approach as well. So here is a very crummy cold email that I actually got. It's incredibly untargeted because you know that I have a copywriting consultancy in sales, and this is talking about NoSQL and using a lot of jargon. So there's a few things that I hate about this message especially. The first being that the subject line is completely self-focused with jargon, and the name part isn't the first name, it's the name of the company emailing me, which I removed for keeping them anonymous. And there's nothing about me or my company, it's completely self-focused. And so you see the same thing with the first sentence, which talks about not having a chance to connect, even though it's the first email they ever sent me and I never opted in. And they're just listing a bunch of their products, and it feels like a monologue completely. And you also notice that they misspelled the word included as include, which is just kind of embarrassing. So after that, they have this list of their products, which are just random features that don't relate to me whatsoever, and I don't see the benefit. Rather than listing 6 different things, they would have been much better off if I had been the right audience, focusing on one of them and really demonstrating the benefit and the value to me and how that would improve my business. But instead, they just have like this laundry list. And so the last thing I really dislike is the lack of call to action. It's nice to ask questions, but this is sort of like almost an afterthought. They ask you a question, and then they're sort of doing this cop-out where they say, well, if this isn't your area, can you point me to the right person, the appropriate individual? Why would I want to do that? They have given me no reason whatsoever to win my business. Even if I wasn't the right appropriate person, and they had a really compelling message that I think would help my company, I would forward it to the right person. But in this case, it's just a garbage email. And so even if I know who the right person is, why would I want to send that to them? It's risking my credibility. And finally, there's really no call to action. It's what Haley, my colleague, would refer to as wimpy language, because they just say, well, let me know if you have any questions. Happy to elaborate on anything from a technical standpoint. What is that? That's not a call to action. So this is a terrible email. Don't do this. Instead, what you want to do is something like this. And this is an email that we wrote that got one SaaS company, 16 new customers. So the subject line is very benefit value driven. This is a value driven email. Lots of numbers here. And so looking closer at the first part, I don't start with a question, which I often do, but it's very clearly framed that you have an idea that will benefit them and get them their next best 100 customers, which is very attractive. Then the second part, which is the case study or social proof sentence, here they actually included the name of an industry logo, one of their clients, or if possible, it was sort of a competitor, and how they were able to triple that customer's monthly run rate, which is very attractive, shows a lot of social proof, and if it's a competitor, it creates a lot of urgency and fear of loss. And then finally, there's a very simple call to action that has an incentive, which is simple but powerful, which says, let's schedule a quick 10-minute call so I can share the idea with you. And the idea is the idea that will probably get you your next best 100 customers and help triple some company's monthly run rate. So then they ask, when works best for you? Very simple, very short, but clear and to the point. I hope my 5 secrets to cold email were helpful. If you want to learn more tips on writing killer cold emails, check out our foolproof cold email guide. I have a special link to it just for you. It's at bit.ly.com/cold email secrets.